the understanding of why women say, I want you to be more emotional and validate to me. So Midge Watch guys, welcome. If I'm recording these and releasing them in order, you got a pretty meta one yesterday. Today is going to be more content focused. Like I said, it's got a bit of a bait and switch to it. A guy originally is concerned about his wife weaponizing the sex life against him to get her way, like a manipulative thing. It kind of turns into wondering why women want us to open up emotionally. And before I start on that, it's funny because Practical Female Psychology for the Practical Man by David Clare Franco. I've talked about it a bunch on the channel. It's on the Sidebar series. They talk about the relationship phases, and I reference it a lot in Praxeology Volume 2 Dread, out in bookstores today, #1 bestseller, blah, blah, blah. Where, like, testing the man for fitness and then getting him to open himself up. So as like a broad category, the reason for it is because once we start opening ourselves up emotionally to girls, it tends to be a way of us ingratiating ourselves. It's not pair bonding, but it's like psychologically, it's like the Ben Franklin effect. Well, I told her my innermost secrets. I must be in love. And that happens before putting him to work. But anyways, at this point, you're going to get some insight into it. So it'll be pretty interesting. So this guy, all men, says married, I got 2 kids, I'm new, I've been lifting, I've been reading, and I have much to learn. One aspect has been an I just do not give an F attitude towards most things. I do believe I need to stop giving even less feelings about hurting people's feelings and just do what I want for me. Before marriage, that was me. The last couple years have been rough. Police involved in some BS cybercrime issue that lasted over 1.5 years, and that my wife's family was having 2 divorces and her father was slowly dying. So naturally, we ended up having fights and a power struggle about feelings. She wanted me to show more emotion about the events that we're having in our lives. She managed to pull me in one day to our bedroom and said it was okay for me to be vulnerable. One time, and this one time I let my feelings be heard, and it was bad. It was bad. I felt like shit, and she looked confused and bewildered during the process. And afterwards, a few days later, I spoke to her about it honestly. I told her crying made me feel worse, and I told her it really didn't make her feel any better at the time either. I could tell. When I asked her how she felt, I was surprised by her honest answer of, well, honestly, dear, I don't like to see men cry, and it bothers me more than I'd like to admit, even though I asked you to be that way, and it made me not like you afterwards. I had let her pull me into her frame. Tisk tisk. Let her convince me that it was fine to show feelings, but in the end, we both understood it was somehow wrong. Men are supposed to be that underground bunker during shitstorm tornadoes, and we were going through. And at that point, I was a tent being flung about. Never again. Fuck that. I think I can let her feel and just let her cry on my shoulders from now on. Remember this line, because it's going to come up in the second half of this video. You're going to like it. I guarantee it's going to blow your mind, but I'm saving that till the end. That was the middle of last year. Sex was diminishing, fighting was increasing, we talked less, and honest speech was far and in between and then got worse. She started to see a counselor, and I was beginning to see where this was going wrong in so many directions. Even worse, I tore my meniscus, so I stopped going to martial arts. F my life. It all came to a head during Christmas. Her dad had passed, our police issue went poof, since they effed it up, not me, and things should have been moving ahead. Dead wrong. It was decided the entire family was to meet for a white Christmas in a newly built family cabin at our vacation acreage. We did this to honor her father, since he was always having this as his dream and the cabin had been built. I knew weeks in advance it'd be an emotional clusterfuck. So now we're stuck at the cabin. Snow is 2 feet high, everybody's drinking, and that was when I'm trying to be my best to be stoic and let the wife flush her feelings out. And then, holy shit. This moment came on the first day where me and my mother-in-law, wife and kids arrived a day early. I was the whipping boy all day. Do this, move that, ready this, I couldn't do anything right. And the next day was even worse as everybody else arrived and things got busy. My time was spent walking on eggshells or being bored and slamming Bushmills down. Bushmills? Jeez. Talk about aiming low. How do you build your own cabin in the woods, then bring Bushmill to drink there? That's like getting a Diet Coke with your McDonald's Happy Meal. It's like, pick a side, man. Anyways, what was I ranting about Bushmill here when I should be talking about a guy's horrible life falling apart. There were laughs and crying for the family members. You could feel the tension. And then it was that when wifey and I were asked to grab a couple extra mattresses out of the fifth wheel to put in the cabin, whatever. We walked outside, and as we gathered the mattress, she just started bawling about her sister, who just split with her husband, being able to just go and do 3 kilometers every day. Red flag. I forget exactly what I said, but it's along the lines of, well, dear, you work hard 2 to 3 times a week with boot camp, and I'm proud of you for that. And then she snapped. To this day, I remember I pulled back in revulsion. The moment is why I'm here. I just went back, ate a harsh brownie my sister-in-law gave me, which I never do, and enjoyed the trip and felt real high, and left. It took a 2-hour-long drive alone in the snow and a walkabout to the lake down the road. I liked it. The point is, I just don't care. I drank, ate, had a good time, Xmas Day, kids, presents, movies, and we played some Cards Against Humanity, then left for 4 days, back home. When we got home, things were cold. And then I found you guys. So here's what I've done so far. Spoke to her about the counseling. I was honest, non-emotional, stated that the more she went, the more unhappy she was becoming. She said that her counselor was just dredging up a past as a reason why she was like what she was, convinced her to stop going, and instead, I got her reading more books on self-improvement rather than a stranger telling her how to think. With the books, at least she has the will to talk to me about them, and we can hash out what works and doesn't as adults. Decided I can still swim, lift, and wear a knee brace, so I'm going to lose that extra 15 pounds I gained last year. I look and feel great. I refocused on the years past, like just, not giving a fuck. This means I started to stop fighting and letting her draw me into frame. I became more honest about what I wanted. Sure, she turned me down for sex sometime or shit test me, and I've failed that a bunch, but more now, I just want to let this stuff run off my back. No butthurt, just, okay, you're allowed to feel that way, fog, and, go back. I'm making changes slowly, and maybe I can be even slower since she keeps saying I'm different, acting weird. I just laugh and joke. And then I just do my work at home. Romance her for shit and giggles randomly, working out the humor, pushing her buttons aspect. Now, sorry for the novel. Valentine's Day weekend now. I've been tracking her cycle, and she's ovulating on Valentine's. We ended up going 3 times that weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Get what I'm saying? Normally, it's once a week. Wednesday comes, I send her a cute hump day camel pic on Tuesday, tell her I've taken the day off to clean the gutters, do yard work, and I'm shot down. Anyway, she arrives home late, boozed from her boot camp, we go to have lunch, then when I come back, I make the moves, shut down again. She asks what my problem is, saying, wasn't 3 times in the weekend enough? I'm like, it's not the amount of times. It's when the mood hits and the time is right. Like 2 of us, middle of the day, alone, no kids, and hurrying to get to work. She was miffed and angry, and I wanted to sex her up. She told me I look hurt. I told her I was not hurt, but that as an adult, I could feel disappointed without being hurt. The next night, chilling with a beer, glass of wine, watching crap, but she says, look, about yesterday, not sure what's wrong. Maybe it's in my head, and it's just about us. You just do what you want to do. I can't control you. You don't care about authority or what your friends do. You just do what you want without asking. I'll ask if I can go out, even if I know the answer is yes. You just tell me that you're going to go do it, and it happens. Yesterday, you just thought we were going to have sex, and so I decided we weren't. I think the reason we don't have sex as much is because I think it's the only thing I can control. I just looked at her with a cute smile and said nothing. Didn't agree, didn't disagree, don't try to fix. Poked her, she smiled back, felt good, or, felt like freedom. Did I fix her? No. Can she fix me? Can I fix her? No. So there you have it. The rest is just some pablum. So there's a lot to unpack on this one. I'm probably going to do like a full Substack article because there's about 15 different concepts in here that I could go through. I guess it's not really applicable to this, but just side note. The few things that are important is 1, you cannot treat your wife's emotional state as a success or failure. A lot of guys do that, where if she starts getting mad, they start treating it like they're doing something wrong. And it's like, she's going to be emotional. That can't factor in. This is why the stay plan is the same as the go plan. The idea that you achieving your goals is what matters. Secondly, to accusations of being butthurt, and dude, girls assume magic rainbows fly out of their vagina and their sexual performance cures cancer. So there is no way that you get rejected and she doesn't think you're butthurt about it. She just will think it. And you sitting there saying you're not butthurt looks like a guy who is butthurt trying to convince her she's not. It just seems manipulative. So I would argue if you're in this situation, and I guarantee you guys are in this situation if you're married or in a relationship at all and you've ever been turned down. Fogging, agree and amplify, amuse mastery. negative inquiry, negative assertion. All these tools are here for a reason. They're in Praxeology Volume 1 Frame. It's fundamental. You can do fogging. Yeah, most girls think like that. You can do agree and amplify. You have no idea how mad I am. I'm going to put you through the drywall, woman. You have amuse mastery. Is that what I am? All right, then. You have negative inquiry. Well, why would I be butthurt? See what I mean? And all of these things completely change the dynamic, as opposed to your wife asserting something and you sitting there arguing with her about it, because now that thing that she asserted has become the central focus, the frame of the situation. How funny is that, right? Counseling doesn't work. What this guy's doing is actually classically a bad thing. When he talked about he just brings up the past as an excuse for what I'm doing. Justification. When you're having a fight with your wife, and why are you having a fight with your wife? I'll never know, but hey, nobody's perfect. And then it's over, and the next day you're sitting there enjoying a coffee and doing whatever, and your wife's like, I want to talk about last night. Under no circumstances, under pain of death, do not rehash the fight. All you're doing is saying, hey, you know all those negative emotions you had? Remember all that BS that I did not want to deal with? Can we redo it? Because I think I can do it better this time. It's like, no, we cannot. I call it the memory of a goldfish, and you need to have it. No idea what you're talking about. Was that a fight last night? Oh, you're gaslighting her. No, you're not having this stupid fight. I don't care what you have to say. You can have this fight if you want to, but I am going to McDonald's. That is it. Anyways, so that stuff aside, we'll get back to the main thrust of it. And this is, I told you I would save this until the end, and this is the end. Absolutely brilliant analysis of what it means when a girl says she wants to open herself up and be more validating to you. Jack 10. Dude, do you really not read between the lines here? And he brought up some quotes. She wanted me to show more emotion about the events happening in our lives, and you just do what you want without asking. I'll ask if I can go out, even if I know the answer is always yes. Those two statements, I told you to put a pin in them. Well, here we are. She feels that you can do whatever you want, unencumbered by anxiety or whatever the hell she's hamstering about. So, she feels that she's dealing with her worries, fears, concerns on an emotional island. She's going through some bad stuff, and in your head, she just feels like you can't empathize. So, she thinks that maybe, if she can convince you to open up, maybe she'll feel better. Probably thinking you've been repressing your emotions, so it'll be good for you too. And that's solipsism. She assumes that everybody else is thinking what she's thinking, you just have some magic power. But, and then when the guy opened up, and then she's like, yeah, actually, I don't like seeing them cry. I regret even asking you to do that. And nobody was happy, right? Like, look, I'll bet what happened is that you spewed a bunch of shit that you were anxious about, which is different than the shit that she was anxious about. And then she started getting anxious about your shit and her shit. She started resenting you for being anxious about different shit because that actually made her feel even more alone on your island of anxiety. Maybe you spewed some anxiety about the cybercrime thing. Maybe you're worried somehow you'll be charged and know the maximum sentence is 8 years and you can go to prison for something you didn't do. And she's thinking, what, is that what you're worried about? Everyone in my family is getting divorced and my dad is dying and all you care is about some bureaucratic legal BS that'll probably sort itself out?
I love the way girls smell. I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower, and they just have an amazing smell to them in general.
Then you hate yourself because you're wishing for all these bad things to accelerate. And how messed up is that? I think anybody would feel vulnerable, but that just makes me want to draw you and the family closer and some time together with each other, etc., etc., etc. Remember that, it's a scenario 1. It's you're empathizing with the other person. And this is what they mean when they want a guy to open up and emotionally validate. She wants to have her emotions reflected back at her so she doesn't feel alone. Remember that. Women are terrified of being alone, not just physically, but emotionally. That's why, as a married couple, you guys have noticed sometimes where your wife is just sitting on the sofa and you're sitting beside her playing, Call of Duty on the Xbox or whatever it is you're doing, not even paying attention to her, but just having you there and present. She finds that very comforting. And similar to this. So remember this, whenever, and I'm repeating it for the cheap seats, when a girl asks you to be more vulnerable, she's not asking for you to let her know your vulnerabilities and pile onto the ones that she already has. She wants to hear her vulnerabilities reflected back at her. And then as a guy, praxeological man, red-pilled man, you have to ask yourself, does she deserve this? Does she deserve this gift from me? And this is where, like he's talking about, the sex time over the weekend, stuff like that. Yeah, great sex time, having fun with the kids. Everything that he wants, she's providing. So why wouldn't he? You know, why wouldn't he? But then again, some Bushmills and a pot brownie is probably just as good, I guess. So at the risk of casting off some usual hubris, I'm pretty sure your wife would have melted in your arms if you said that shit. And I'll bet she wouldn't have noticed, just like I bet a lot of you don't notice right now, that you didn't actually confess any feelings. Every sentence was spoken in the second person. You. You aren't confessing any vulnerability at all. You're just packaging her vulnerability into a compact and simple package. And you're saying, look, do I think I could turn off the mess of thoughts in your mind into a simple package like this if I don't have an idea of what you're going through? And you know what? Maybe she doesn't buy all that wholesale. Maybe she does. I don't want things to conclude though, so you calmly and reassuring respond, who does? Who wants anything good to end? So I'd call this advanced fogging, but you're essentially just summarizing her feelings or using some rhetorical questions to parse out those feelings themselves. Side note, before we finish this one, I know this is a bit of a longer one. That is exactly what you do in like some old pickup stuff. Like the Cube. You guys remember the Cube? Cube was absolutely great for that. You would ask a girl a question, like picture a cube, picture a horse, picture a ladder. And then she would define what she thinks is her perfect horse. And then you would say, well, the horse is representing your ideal lover. And then you make up some BS about, well, since you wanted a, brown horse, you want a tan man with freckles wearing big hipster glasses. And if you look at her body language, she's either like nodding along with you because she agrees or shaking her head because she disagrees. If she agrees, and this is the clever part of it, if she agrees, say yes and if she disagrees, you say no, but, and then just say the exact opposite. And the idea there is you find out somebody's inner wants and values and concerns and all of this stuff without asking a direct question like a resume on a date. And so it's just the same thing there, but applied to a marriage, applied to somebody asking you to be more vulnerable without ruining your love life, without crying like a bitch, and without having to chug back Bushmills because you can't stand your mother-in-law. I would say that's pretty damn successful. Is that authentically you? Whatever the fuck that means? Well, no, but neither is crying to make your wife happy. So we're at where we're at. Oh yeah, so the continuing on. So by the way, to anybody else, hearing this, you don't have to do any of this. This is a lot of work. This is inverting someone's request to share your emotional burden, and instead of expressing that, you're willing to take on more of theirs. And yet, you give them some conscious deniability that they're being the magnanimous one, since this is all framed as their willingness to listen to your vulnerabilities. So if you had a loved one who's depressed about some loss and what they're going through, you'd probably respond with, I mean, it sucks, but whatever, thanks for asking, but you don't need to deal with the shit in my head. You can just say, okay, hang in there, buddy. Or you can do this exact technique. And your friend's mom might say some stuff like, yeah, I know, right? I mean, I still remember learning how to make fire with him when I was 8, and, a bunch of stuff about the old man that she misses. And look, he's letting you deal with the shit in his head. Maybe he feels better about everything after the conversation. And yet, and this is why that plausible deniability is there. Nobody feels the embarrassment if he would just ask, can I just ramble about why I'm depressed so you can help me figure it out? Plausible deniability, helping everybody save face. This, again, it pairs well with friends, family, whatever, if you choose to do it. And again, the value thing I talked about. So it's a powerful tool that you pretty much want to break out only for the people in your life that you actually care about and who truly deserve it. If done right, it could be a powerful thing that anybody can do as a good friend or good husband. If your wife is shitty, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do anything. And while we love to say, I don't give a fuck and shut the fuck up, consider the range of human emotions and interactions that is broad enough that you can express empathy without crying like a little bitch. So we do say shut the fuck up in this context, and that's because if you don't know what to say, you'll never lose ground by saying nothing. It's not meant to be a strategy. It's meant to be a holding pattern while you figure this kind of stuff out, these kind of more advanced techniques. So I prefer to see, so we say it in the context of, look, you're clearly taking the shit your wife says too much at face value. Her yelling at the dishes isn't about the dishes. Stop trying to compare the chores with her and shut the fuck up. But I'd prefer to see it in this context. Look, you're taking the shit your wife says at too much face value. Her yelling about the dishes isn't about the dishes. Responding to her and arguing about dishes is entering her frame, which isn't doing either of you any good. But if you want to pull her into your frame, you'll probably need to figure out whatever it is actually on about. Have you been a drunk captain? Are your lives objectively overwhelmed with kids and careers and she's dealing with it poorly? Does she have stupid, unrealistic expectations about household chores? And do you need to set a hard boundary about this? Think about it, and then you'll have some developed and thoughtful ideas, and stop trying to compare chores with her, and then shut the fuck up. See this? It all revolves around self-reflection, self-awareness, and then not taking women so seriously. How funny is that? The rest here is kind of just some ranting about the oldest teenager in the house. Here we go. So I'm going to skip all the way to the end, because this is like an interesting little side point. So we walked outside, and as we gathered the mattresses, she started yelling about her sister, recently split up with her husband, able to go jogging every day. And he forgets what he said, but it was something like, you know, you work hard at your CrossFit, so I'm proud of you for that. And then she snapped. So she expressed envy for her divorced sister, and you responded with a compliment that was infantilizing at best and condescending at worst. Since she snapped, but didn't elaborate on what she said, possibly because your left-brained, half-autistic mind that we see here so often, and we're so overwhelmed about actually having to process somebody's emotions that it shut down, I can't tell whether you think, or whether I think this was a shit test or a comfort test, but it is very possible your response was smashing a comfort test screw with the shut the fuck up hammer. You got any other tools, dude? Or are you just going to refuse to ever pull out a screwdriver because the one time you dropped it on your foot? What he's meaning here is he didn't read that situation properly. She is envious of her divorced sister. Think about that red flag. My fear of missing out is going into overdrive. And you're like, oh, but baby, you cook such good cookies. It's a red flag. You got to pay attention to shit like that. Now, I mean, you could respond to it. You could bring up, you know, the fact that your sister-in-law in this case is an alcoholic or a drunk, or she's lonely and cries all the time, because people kind of only remember the stuff that we want to remember and they forget the other things. And that's a whole other topic. I'm not even going to waste it here about setting narratives, which is going to be a big thing for guys, especially when you find out that the biggest indication that you're going to get a divorce is whether your friends in your immediate vicinity are getting a divorce. It's crazy, isn't it? When you realize how much of it is outside of your control. It's the fear of missing out. There's been volumes written on it. Again, another episode, we'll get to that. He brings up the counseling and the therapy, where the therapy was just bringing up the old stuff. You know, the therapist thinks you're playing Clue, and you consider it a winning condition when they announce that your mental state is Colonel Anxious, who clearly had a motive because of bad experiences. Way to go, Sherlock. Really nailed it. And that's what they mostly do. The therapist's goal is to categorize somebody's condition with something that they remember from the book. They don't actually want to fix it. They want to diagnose it. And that is why everybody's on SSRIs now. Therapists are playing a game of Clue, and they'll figure it out. And then when they figure it out, they give you pills, and then they run a victory lap over how many lives they've been saving. Good job, sir. The rest is just him talking about the same stuff I talk about. And then at the final part, where it's the revenge fantasy this whole thing started with, you know, she feels bad that sex is a way to control me in the relationship. He's like, dude, your wife is responsible for her own emotions and the fucked mental models that drive those emotions. But if her mental models mean that she irrationally rejects sex because she wants some kind of misguided need of control, well, she is overtly announcing, I don't want to enter your frame because I've decided it's better to lash out with self-destructive actions instead. I know it makes no sense, and that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of women think this way. A lot of women think this way. It is impossible to do much about it because they don't even realize they think this way. You just act happier and happier, and she just gets pissier and pissier, mostly because she wishes she could just operate with a healthy, constructive mindset like you do, but she's jealous, and she can't, and she's resentful. And it's easier to try to bring you down instead of figuring out her shit and stop thinking this way. And this will happen until you get an epic shit test known as the main event, where she realizes how stupidly self-destructive her thinking is, and basically everybody else. To you and everybody else. Banging on about your frame is just hurting her, so she should come to terms with that eventually. This is... Honestly, if I could rewrite frame, I would probably add an entire chapter just to this. That is generally how the main event happens. People are so stubborn. People are so scared to change. Women are so unreflective. And a lot of married guys go through this, man. They really do. Where the guy is becoming happier. The guy is becoming more successful. The girl, usually because that's what she learned from her parents, goes back to very self-destructive behavior, a lot like what you're seeing here. until eventually she realizes that's like a fight or flight moment. She's going to get abandoned. You're going to leave. You're going to find a next better woman. And it takes that level of threat point to actually get a girl to swallow her ego and get in there and actually make an effort. And this is like the ultimate comfort test. And it's really, when it does happen, and it doesn't always happen, but when it does, I've only ever once seen a guy who wasn't ready for it. So as for the solution, I've already written about it. I'm tired of talking about it. Yeah, so here's the thing. Your wife is being very overt with this, though, which means, at least in my opinion, you don't need a main event, which is good, because this whole sequence of events leading to catharsis doesn't always happen. We have some older guys here that I'd ask if his first wife had smoothly escalated to this and then calmed the fuck down, because not everybody does. Some people are so fucked up that they're willing to indulge their self-destructive habits until they get divorced or slit their wrists in the bathtub because, you know, it's control or some shit. Your wife's going to go down this path, but maybe she'll figure out it's a bad path and join your frame, or maybe not. Can you control that? No. Can you influence that? Sure. Are you saying you've never influenced anybody in your life before? Come on. Now, the problem is when somebody's not even conscious that they're doing it, and there's not much you can do with that if they're not even aware. But your wife's aware of it. She's admitting it in very plain language. And women don't ever do that. And this is why this is a 28-minute field report about a Christmas party. You can help your wife get over this shit and enter your frame without having a main event, but you're just sitting there, twirling your red pill hammer in your hand with a perfectly good claw hammer in the other end of it, and a sort of just whistling happy, shrugging in responses. But you know what? The rest is him just giving a long speech, but that's the point on this one. Sex life isn't bad. She's trying to use it to control. A lot of this is just not falling into her frame is the key part of it. Having your own frame is another key part of it. Being, and I know this is going to sound weird, but being more empathic or empathetic. She's expressing things, and she's actually very good at expressing her feelings, where if he listens, he can just reflect those back at her. She doesn't feel emotionally alone. She doesn't feel the need to weaponize the sex life. They have more sex. And then pillow talk. The best time to tell a girl about things is after you've just had sex. They have a injection of testosterone in them. It calms down their neurosis. You'd be surprised once girls find out that, dude, every time I have sex, the next morning I feel great. And, you know, it's because hormonally they're getting testosterone into them, and that mutes the empathic response. But as far as a girl knows, she's just like, sex makes me feel better. I should have more of it. And you're like, yes, you should. But you see what I mean? There is two ways this can go down. And in one way, you're chugging down Bushmills and eating pot brownies. And in the other way, you're having sex 3 days three days in a row on the weekend, and then joking around with each other. So it's up to you. So I'll catch you guys later.